listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you on the Mutual Broadcast Network and the all-new IPBN Radio Network. If you'd like to send an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main radio website, where you can find out what we've done in the past, what we're doing today, and where we intend on being tomorrow at www.xzoneradiotv.com. Once again, from everyone here at the X-Zone, Relmar McConnell Media, and our many subsidiaries, we would like to send our prayers and our thoughts to everyone in Orlando, Florida, who has, God bless you all down there with what happened the other night at the Pulse. Our hearts and our prayers are with each and every one of you. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is no stranger to the X-Zone. Peter KLING is our guest, and the KLING family has over 500 years of history of standing for the truth, starting with the Reformation of the Church. Following in his ancestors' footsteps, Peter has began his education in the scriptures before the age of 5, and his education in the sciences by the age of 10. Peter's first started seeing future events at the age of 9, had an alien contact at the age of 18, has survived attempts on his life 16 times. Joining me now is Peter KLING. By the way, his website, www.peterkling.com. And Peter, thank you very much for joining us. But I have to ask you, why have there been 16 attempts on your life?
That has to do with, am I coming through over here?
No, you're very low, Peter.
That's what
what I was wondering. My settings all just kind of went haywire just before the show started.
Oh, okay.
Hold on for a second.
Sure, we'll hold on. Peter Kling is my guest, Exonation, and his website is www.peterkling.com. Peter, are you with us?
I'm trying today.
Okay, my friend. We're here for you, pal. We're here for you.
Okay, well, hold on for a second. Are we doing any better?
A little bit.
Let me change microphones here and see if that alleviates this.
The old changing of the microphones. Been there, done it, have the scars to prove it. Peter?
Yes, I'm working on
Whoa!
this
There, it's...
as much as possible.
Whatever you're doing is working, my friend.
Is it?
Yeah.
This is crazy, because I didn't do a thing. I plugged in one wire, but I didn't hook up a microphone to it yet. Okay, so we're back.
We're back.
Amazing.
So tell me, Peter, why 16 attempts on your life?
You know, Rob, that's a great question. It actually started with alien contact. It started back when I was 18. It was shortly after my 18th birthday. It was the end of May, beginning of June. And one night I was actually, I wouldn't say abducted. Someone appeared in my room. It was about 11 o'clock at night. I was the only one at home. I don't recall where everybody had gone, but everybody was out. I was the only one at home. And I had gone to bed. And shortly thereafter, I heard a voice that woke me up, and it said, "Look, the prince arrives." And I popped up, and I looked out the window, and I could see flashing lights. And I ran to the window, and I'm looking out the window, and I see what looks like a golden chariot with horses molded right into it. Now, interestingly enough, this was 1974. Eric von Daniken's book, The Chariot of the Gods, had just been out not too long. And it was, UFOs were heavy on my mind. And I had been seeing future events since, for 9 years at that point. And so all of a sudden I had this contact. Now, this thing started to land on the other side of the house. I could see it. I had like a corner bedroom with two windows, one facing one way, one facing the other way, and I couldn't watch it completely from the big window. And I ran around to the other window, and when I ran around, I'm looking outside and I said, "Where did it go?" And I'm totally mesmerized, and there's no one in my room, although there was when I got up out of bed. And so I'm like, did I dream this? What's totally confused.
All right, Peter, stand by. We're going to have to do a little bit of a cliffhanger here. We have to take our first break. Exonation, Peter Kling is our very special guest this hour. www.peterkling.com, and we'll both be back on the other side talking more about Peter's 16 attempts on his lives, his ET contact, his seeing the future, and much more. Don't go away.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Explanation. Peter Kling is my special guest this hour. www.peterkling.com. Sorry that we had to take the break there, my friend, but please continue your story. It's fascinating.
Yeah. After that, I trying to figure out what had just happened and having no clue whether I just actually had a real lucid dream or whether but something woke me up, and I saw flashing lights outside. That much I know. And I saw this chariot, and there was this guy that looked like a prince landing it. It was all lights and smoke or mist coming out from underneath it. And it vanished. And because it wasn't where I expected it to be, I just was like the most confused person on the face of the planet at that point. So after a little bit, I went back to sleep, and that's when it started. I had what I would call alien contact, but after years of other people's input, it may not have actually been aliens as we understand aliens. I wasn't taken to any spaceship. There wasn't any anal probing going on. I was literally taken underground. It felt like I was in the bowels of a castle. Everything was stone, except that the ceilings were lights. Everyone dressed in what could only be described as like a monk's robe, but of the finest material. I mean, it was very soft material and very silky, and yet still had weight to it. And I was required to also put one of these on, and I was to meet the prince, and which I basically did. Now, I was never told who the prince was, but it was like, it was getting to know you. This contact went on for about 5 days over the course of a week.
My gosh.
It was all fascinating, but it was always underground. And I would meet different people, the first time I kind of snuck away and started searching around, and that was a big no-no. And so after that, I was given a guide that I was not allowed to leave his side. And where it all culminates at is that we had to go to this one meeting. It was like more like a business social, and these life forms all looked very human. They all, you couldn't tell them apart from any you or me or anybody else on the planet.
Okay.
Except that they were a little bit taller.
Huh.
That's all. They were a little bit taller. So, I'm just about 6 foot, and they were either my height or taller. And even the females were, the shortest one was like 5'6" or 5'7" in that range, and taller. And my contact was only informational. I was never allowed to touch anybody, and I always had to keep my friend with me, who was explaining these things as we went along. But in this last meeting, I was talking to this friend of mine here, and we were in a room with about 70 other of these life forms, and one of them gets up and gets up on this little podium in the front of the room and says, "Can I have everybody's attention, please?" And so, we all stop talking and look forward, and he says, "We need someone to kill Peter Kling." And with that, my eyes popped out of my head, my jaw dropped, and I looked over at at this friend of mine, and said, "Why do they want to kill me?" And he just simply said, "Because you crossed the line." And it was never actually explained what it was what line I crossed. I couldn't understand it. However, I was always suspicious of them because of my biblical connection and my education of the scripture. I was always listening for some connection, something that would connect them back to the Bible, like the Prince of Peace, a connection with some sort of a scripture, and there never was one. So I never accepted their friendship with just totally trustingly. And when there was actually one person down closer toward the front of the room that said, "I'll do it." And it was like I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe that. And that was the last contact. I was sent back to my room, literally, and that was it. Now, it was about a month later. I was actually going over to see a friend's house. He was a bug collector, and I found a bug that he was looking for. Got on the motorcycle, and I drove a motorcycle at the time. Got on the motorcycle, put the jar in my pocket, and headed over to his house. Wound up in an accident where I wound up dropping the bike, doing over 60 miles an hour.
Oh, Lord.
The jar, it is funny. Before I got on the highway, I lived in North Carolina. I lived in western North Carolina, up in the mountains. And before I left, I thought, boy, this would be terrible if I wrecked this bike. They'd be picking glass out of my guts for a week because I put the jar in my windbreaker pocket. And anyway, I hit the ground, and the bike and I went slightly different ways. I rolled about 50 feet past the bike, and once I stopped rolling, I got up and ran over to the bike and picked the bike up and was looking at it, and I'm looking at myself, and the person who was going to see was the first person on the scene. and the only thing that happened, I got a really bad case of road rash, and I dislocated my left thumb. The jar lid unscrewed, and the jar was still intact with the bug inside of it. Wild, huh?
That is very wild. That is very wild.
3 months later, I bought a new used car. It was a Triumph GT6, a sweet little ride. 22 hours after I owned it, I lost the left front tire off of it, rolled it down a riverbank. I was doing about 50 when that happened, and had no explanation. They found the tire on the other side of the river. Both of those accidents, I came away from basically unscathed. I literally had glass in my underwear from the car wreck, from flipping over and rolling it. And here's an 18-year-old. By that time, that was September, and I escaped literally two things that should have killed me within a couple of months of each other. And I'd never had an accident before, never. I had already been driving for 2 years. never had an accident with the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been riding bikes, motorcycles since I was 13. So, it was not like I was inexperienced. I had a couple accidents on dirt, but that was about it. You drop the bike on dirt, that happened. But there was never anything that was life-threatening before that. And so I became like almost invincible. I was like pushing the envelope. Now, an interesting thing, I was educated by an interesting set of mentors that didn't teach me religion. They taught me exopolitics, biblical history, and biblical prophecy. And it was shortly after, well, it was a year after, it was a year and a few months, it was September 1975, that I was invited to a special meeting. And it was a fantastic slide presentation. It was one of the best slide presentations of the universe that we had up to that point. I don't know where they got the slides from, but they were fantastic. They were almost like looking at the Hubble spacecraft, his telescope, but this is long before Hubble existed. And the person that gave the talk was one of my mentors. And the last words, I thanked him for the talk afterward and told him it was very informative, just how fantastic it was. And it was a little old German man. And he looked at me, and he looked me in the eyes, and he said, "Your future is in the stars." And now this is a person who claimed to be one of the true brothers of Christ, one of the 144,000 with a little flock, the last of them being here, and they're gone now, to the best of my knowledge. I don't know personally of any that are left. The last contact I had with them was at the age of 19. But they are supposed to be the most dynamic life forms in existence, next to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords himself. And it's interesting, Arthur C. Clarke had some insight on this. Remember the movie 2001 when David Bowman becomes the Star Child, the infant in the embryo?
Yes.
That's who they are.
Oh.
Their job is to replace after the paradigm change. Their job is to replace the Watchers. Remember the Watchers from the Book of Enoch?
Yes.
The fathers of Nephilim. Well, they were to watch over humankind in our development. However, they left their post, and this isn't a story about Enoch. We live now. What they created back then is still with us today in the way of poltergeists and ghosts and demonic life forms that plague us as they did back then. Only now they haven't been able to take physical form unless they're working with the military and their genetic engineering program, and that could be another program in itself, because they do exist, and the only way that they can be controlled is by using the term Jesus Christ. Or so says a high-ranking military whistleblower who wishes to remain anonymous, so I can't tell you his name. I don't know his name, but that's the claim. Remember those? There was a claim that underground nukes went off in different bases. One was just south on the Colorado border, and another one, it was the one that cracked the Washington Monument.
I remember hearing about the one in Colorado. In fact, there were even reports that the Russian military had landed in Colorado, something to do with an underground base.
Well, the Russian military at the time was doing operations work with the U.S. military, special forces within the different state forests out there. But this was something that was totally different. The earthquake, it was rumored, and I was like, yeah, okay, come on. What the rumor was, or what the implication was, is that they set off underground nukes at these secret military bases, and it was, a war that had already started. Close but no cigar. Yes, they were underground nukes, but it was to wipe out the genetically engineered versions of the Nephilim, which they created, and it failed. They found the only way that they can control these things is by commanding them under the name Jesus Christ. And so they're keeping them contained. So if you listen to the whistleblowers, here's the crazy thing. If you listen to the whistleblowers, we should have aliens on Earth in the shape of these Nephilim, these genetically engineered Nephilim. There should be an alien base on the moon and an alien base on Mars.
Right.
Probably owned by the Nazis and some other coalition and their genetic engineering laboratories. If you listen to what Laura Eisenhower says, she claims that, and this is the great-granddaughter of Dwight D., the United States President, she claims that she was tapped to be part of the Mars Ark program.
All right, stand by, Peter. We've got to take our news break. Fascinating story. Peter KLING is my guest. www.peterkling.com. We'll both be back after the news. This is the X Zone on the Mutual Broadcast Network and the IPBN Radio Network.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerreonian intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerreonian Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerreonian Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com. Explanation. Peter Kling is my guest this hour. www.peterkling.com. So, Peter, are we in the final days as depicted in the Bible? And and if so, Peter, what we're seeing now in the American political arena and the homegrown terrorists attacks, especially like the ones like we had in Orlando this past week, are these also signs within the Bible?
Not directly, but they're leading to. Yeah, Rob, here's the interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
My education in the scriptures started actually before I was 5. At the age of 9, I get this dream that literally comes true, and it creates a paradox in my life because when I run home to tell my mother about it, she says, "Oh, that's nice, dear. It's time for you to go to bed." It was my job to walk the dog at night, and my dad had a business. We had a trained guard dog, and so this is back in 1965, so it's like walking in the streets in 1965 with a trained guard dog. You're totally safe. Anyway, so here it was about 9:15. I got sent to bed. It was the most fantastic thing that happened in my life, and I had no explanation as to how it happened, and I got sent to bed for it. So this created a paradox in my life, and I turned to science to try to find the answers. And indeed, science over the past 50 to 60 years has developed enough for us to validate everything which is in the scriptures, right down to the fact. Here's an interesting little fact. Rob, you know about string theory. We live in a 10-dimensional multiverse, plus the dimension of time, making it 11 dimensions totally across the board. Plus, there's the possibility of M theory, which explains membrane theory, which is membrane theory, and then superstring theory, which there might be an infinite number of realities. There could be, I'm interviewing you right now in some other alternate reality.
Right.
So this is all mathematically possible, but let's just stick with the 11 basic ones that we're at.
Okay.
If that applies, then here's the case. We are 3 parts physical and 7 parts spiritual. We are the culmination. It's the math. The third dimension is the culmination of creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Yeah.
And so, okay, now the math states that those 7 other dimensions exist perfectly fine without us. They don't need us at all. However, without them, we do not exist. So we are the last ones, the last set of dimensions 8, 9, and 10 to be created. So this is all we can now prove. The creation story, we can prove the fact that we didn't evolve. We didn't just pop up here in 6 days. We were genetically engineered. The account is right in Genesis, the 2nd chapter, verses 21 through 23.
Right.
It's all laid out there. And what do we have? There's one common theme throughout the whole scriptures. Interdimensional alien life forms, of which we were created in their image. Now, here's an interesting thing. Biologically, we are just a vessel. Hence, they put us under Admiralty law, the law of the sea. But you're the captain of your own ship, and you see, we contain the soul of God because we were made in the image of God. We are indeed the children of the Creator, the children of Yahuwah, Yahweh, Jehovah, if we so choose to be. And so that those who choose to be get to be the chosen ones from Matthew, the 24th chapter, and verse 22, where it says, if those days were not cut short, no flesh would be saved, but on account of the chosen ones, those days would be cut short. Now, with that said, Letters to Earth, the Letters to Earth explains all this and how we got to where we are in this point. Letters to Earth is the book I wrote.
An excellent book, I might add.
Thank you very much. And now here we are. I was listening to Judge Napolitano, who's a United States judge, retired from the bench. He may have been forced out, who knows, but he's a commentator on the news. And he said that he has read the transcripts from Hillary's email. And those transcripts indict both Obama and Hillary in an arms deal with Qatar to supply arms to both rebels in Syria and Libya with the intent to overthrow the governments and assassinate both Gaddafi and who's the Syrian leader? Whatever. Yeah, whoever he is over there. He's been out of the news a little bit. He's hiding. But it failed. It failed in both cases, and it got Ambassador Stevens murdered. And so all of a sudden, Hillary backed out of being. She left the State Department. What a great transition to become president.
Oh, by the way, it's Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah, there you go. So they got Gaddafi, but they lost control, and then they created they funded this whole thing, which has become the Islamic State, ISIS. Now, you want to talk about the Mandela effect?
Holy cow.
This only gets better. This only gets better. Now, here's the thing. This is all verifiable. You go do the research. Ronald Reagan, George H. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush are all Knights of Malta.
Right.
And Obama has a letter of endorsement from the Knights of Malta, which means that they are all servants of the Pope and citizens of the Vatican. The United States Incorporated has been run by the Knights of Malta and their agent for the last 35 years. The White House has. So the Vatican has had total control of the White House since Ronald Reagan by the laws of the knighthood of the papal system. So think about this. You're the king. You turn around and you knight one of your faithful servants and you give him title and land. Now, do you really care what he goes and does on his land that you gave him?
No.
No. He's going to rule the people, tax them, do whatever he wants.
Yep.
And if there's a neighbor outside your kingdom and he goes and creates conquest and goes and pillages and plunders and gives you your tax due, do you really care?
No.
Thank you. Come again. Yeah.
It reminds me of do you remember the Wizard of Id cartoon series?
Yes. Exactly.
Sir Rodney and the king are talking one day, and I forget who asked who, but one of them said, no, the king said to Sir Rodney, do you know what their golden rule is, Sir Rodney? And Sir Rodney says, no. And the king looked with a smile on his face, the one who has the gold makes the rules.
Yeah, and you know, I believe it's got to be from that cartoon was it coined that phrase, he who has the gold makes the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And because that cartoon is what, 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
you know, here's the interesting thing. When Russia invaded Crimea and Ukraine, 24 hours later, all of Ukraine's gold was on a plane to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. There's another show we could talk about. I lived in Kiev. My passport is all Kiev, Ukraine.
Well, wasn't one of the buildings that got struck during 9/11, didn't it have something to do with the gold depository?
There was gold that was gold and silver bullion both that was being held in I forget which building, number 1 or number 2. But that gold was moved out the night before. We can be sure of that. You know what's 3 blocks over?
No.
The Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And you know what is between the two buildings? Underground service tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why when they got down there and they opened the vault, it was empty. It was empty.
So why isn't President Obama and Secretary Clinton being charged formally for their crimes?
Because they're under the protection of the Pope. They're under the protection of the Vatican. Remember, this is not the United States, the land of the free, home of the brave, a republic. This is the United States of America Incorporated. And the mother of all corporations is, guess who? The Vatican. You know who invented corporation, Bob?
No.
The Romans did. Do you know who perfected it?
The Romans.
The Holy Roman Catholic Church perfected corporation. Hence, the Holy Roman Catholic Church is the mother of all corporations. Guess what? I don't care what religion you are. If you are an incorporated religion, you are part of the Holy Roman Catholic Church.
So does this play on the reason why the political establishment is so dead against Donald Trump?
Yeah, because he breaks 35 years of control of the White House by the Vatican. Once that control is breaking, now here's the interesting thing. This is where it starts to line up with biblical prophecy.
Okay.
Revelation 17 and 18 is the destruction of Babylon the Great. Who was Babylon the Great? Well, Babylon was the capital of ancient Samaria. It was the center of the world as far as Anunnaki worship. Anunnaki, those who from heaven came and gave the cradle of civilization, the concept of religion and government as means of controlling a free people who had an understanding of God on their own. And so we've been saddled with that ever since. And every single civilization, every single world power has been basically worshiping the same Anunnaki gods, either Anunnaki or Egyptian. And so here we are in the 21st century, and they're still worshiping these gods, but they're not gods. They're alien interdimensional life forms. As I wrote in Letters to Earth, they are most likely our genetic engineers, led by the head of genetic engineering. Interestingly enough, I wrote this 3 years after Letters to Earth was published. Guess who shows up on the scene? The Intergalactic Federation of Light. And guess what their backstory is? Oh, our leader is Lucifer. He created you. Damn. You know, Rob, Letters to Earth has had more influence on this planet than somebody just told me this yesterday. He said, Peter, Letters to Earth has had more influence on this planet than you have any imagination of. And it's true. 6 years ago, I sent a copy of it to A&E. I'm switching publishers. My new publisher called up A&E the other day, and they said, we got this guy that we want, we really would like you to consider.
Sure.
His name is Peter Kling. The guy at A&E said, the guy who wrote Letters to Earth?
Wow.
Yeah. If you go back and historically look at their programming over the last 10 years, you'll find that it has changed significantly 5 years ago. It went to aliens. It went to UFOs.
Yeah.
It went to interdimensional life forms. It went to ghost hunters. It went to conspiracies with the church. And now we're covering Area 51. Mm-hmm. We're covering conspiracies within the government. We're doing they've done the Freemasons. Here's the thing about Freemasons. Freemasons come up clean, basically. They really do. I couldn't nail the Freemasons with one thing. It's those within the Freemasons which are controlling the system and using the Freemasons as foot soldiers to carry out their agenda. And that's exactly what's happening now with the Nation of Islam being exported from the Middle East into Europe and into the United States. This is a 100-year plan that they've been dealing with this, but now it's being done at wholesale rate. Think about one thing. Mm-hmm. What's their goal? Sharia law, right? Okay. What happens if we have an economic collapse? What happens if they collapse the dollar? Which they want to do. China and Russia are working on that. The BRICS banks are already the BRICS bank is already in place, and the AIIB is well funded, and every single ally of the United States has joined the AIIB. Only the United States hasn't joined it as a charter member.
How
it
come?
Hasn't joined either one of those banks as any member.
Why not?
Because we're being controlled by the people who own the gold, the Federal Reserve, the Knights Templar. Knights Templar are credited with creating our bankster system. Who are the Knights Templar? Oh, these two poor knighthoods riding one horse in the same direction. Wait a minute. Poor knights, don't feed me that line. Who were the two knights? The Zionists and the Jesuits. How do we have a Jesuit pope that goes totally contrary to papal law?
Big time.
Yeah.
Big
How
time.
does that happen? Now, here's an interesting thing, something I said in October 2010. We need to watch the date 3/13/13. I didn't know why I was saying that, because I also said we need to watch 4/14/14. I knew exactly why I said that, because I went and I looked it up. It was the first time that the Gregorian calendar and the Hebrew calendar lined up. Nisan 14 and April 14th landed together. And not only did they land together, because that's Passover. It's not only Passover, but it signifies the sacrificial Lamb of God who is going to essentially remove this demonic system of evil which is controlling Earth. I'll go back to my contact and those who want to kill me. Homo capensis is more than likely who they are. Look them up. They are believed to be an underground civilization, the extended heads, and I couldn't tell whether they had extended heads or not. They all had robes on.
Yeah.
Why wasn't I taken to a spacecraft? Why was I taken underground? Well, these Homo capensis. You know who turned me on to that? Karen Hughes, the whistleblower for the World Bank. I was interviewing her once, and she was talking about this. I was like, Karen, your Jesus slid off your cracker. And then I thought about my own experience. I was like, holy mackerel. There's a reason why we get the information. The information that I got about my family, which is most amazing. I knew about my family's connection to the Reformation through my great-grandmother's side. They were all Huguenots, but my grandfather was Lutheran, and it didn't quite match up.
Mm-hmm.
And in February, I came across the information. A family member actually found it online. Our original name was Klingenschmidt. I knew that we were bell makers, but we were not only bell makers, and we were bell makers from Saxony, but we also made armor and swords. And in the Reformation, we stood up along with Martin Luther. In fact, the Klingenschmidts hid Martin Luther while he was translating the Bible from Latin into German, which was then printed on the Gutenberg press.
My gosh.
We were all excommunicated from the church, and for 200 years, the agents of the church hunted down my family and murdered them wherever they could find us, at the forges, in the fields, and in their own beds. They changed the name. They shortened it up. They changed the spelling. They moved to America. Interesting, fantastic history, Rob. This is fantastic. Two of my ancestral uncles came to the United States, or cousins, I guess you would call them. Well, it wasn't the United States, it was America. They landed in Philadelphia long before it was in the 1600s. They moved west in Philadelphia and established what was then Fort Klingensmith, which is now the city of Jeannette. An Indian raid took place on the fort, and two of the Kling brothers were captured, an 8-year-old and a 16-year-old. The 16-year-old got away and made his way back to the fort. It was a massacre at the fort. But the 8-year-old was never seen from again for
All right,
years.
Peter, we're going to have a cliffhanger here. I have to take my final break. Please stand by. Exonation, Peter Kling is my special guest. His book, Letters to the Earth, available online. And visit his website, peterkling.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Right after the election.
You know, I remember having people on the show, Peter, who were... people on the show, Peter, who were telling me that President Obama was actually going to figure out a way how he could stay in power as president.
I think they're going to let him slide away into the sunset, and Hillary might get indicted, but he might be able to slide away. It's going to be difficult to say how they're actually going to play this out, but one thing's for sure. The Vatican is going to lose its power over the White House, and when we have social unrest that is caused by this Islamic Sharia law that they're trying to force upon us, then we will see a major, major change and the end of religion as we know it, because you can't end one without ending the other.
You know, I think that people in general suffer from over political correctness.
Yeah, and that's something that Donald Trump has come out. Donald Trump has said stuff that it's upset the political establishment, and everything that he said, I ferreted it out as being true.
Yes.
You know, and so he's reaching middle America, which has been abused by who? By the political system controlled by whom? The Holy Roman Catholic Church, the same entity that has turned around and tried to murder my family for 200 years. And so they are losing their grip. They are now indicted. Let's look at the sins of the church. Do they pile clear on up to heaven through all of their child abuse? They sure do. So, yeah, we can cover a lot more of this. The political situation's happening. We've got this thing called the Mandela effect, and there's an easy way around it, Rob. Take control of our own future. My time is limited here. I'm going off the grid. There's a reason why. So, yeah, we could certainly carry on this conversation later on in the week.
Let's do that, Peter. Tell our listeners how they can get copies of Letter to Earth.
Letters to Earth, you can find it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. If you write me at one@peterkling.com, I will gladly send you a free PDF copy. So there you go. You know, a lot of people strap for cash.
Yeah.
We certainly are, because our jump to be going off the grid is due because we've given up against the banksters. We've got a house that's $100,000 underwater and no place to go.
Oh, so, for goodness sake.
Yeah, so it's time to head off the grid. And we can do that successfully. At least we believe we can. The ships are burning.
Have you and your family been targeted by the establishment?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Rob, they came into my house, took me out of the house 7:30 in the morning in handcuffs and pajamas. They took me to the local state police lockup. I was on an arrest warrant that was 3 months away from the end from the statute of limitation. This happened about a week after I get a message, an email from a royal asking, why has my copy of Letters to Earth vanished out of my house? And I said, I don't know. Who are you?
What was the warrant for?
I was supposed to be like the biggest drug dealer on the face of the planet.
You?
Yeah, me.
Give me a break.
Seriously. You know what I served? 40 days and 40 nights exactly. I was facing 9 to 21 years, Rob. 9 to 21 years. I got probation. They had no case. They violated me on my probation.
My God.
And I served exactly 40 days and 40 nights. The last day of my obligation to the state was the last day that Pope Benedict was Pope.
Peter, we will be in touch. We'll get you on later on this week, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And once again, X-Zone Nation, if you'd like to get a copy of Letters to Earth, Barnes & Noble, as well as all bookstores, and visit Peter's website, www.peterkling.com. Until later on this week, my friend, be safe.
Thank you, Rob. You too. Love and blessings to all.
Bye-bye, Pete. Exonation, Peter Kling has been my guest, www.peterkling.com, and I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.